Wolf's message, the book and the documentary, can absolutely change your worldview and let you know you're not only human. Wolf was a young man who left verifiable evidence that he knew he was going to be struck and killed by lightning, and he knew where it would happen, and he left a drawing that showed what would happen in that spot afterwards. All of this is told in the movie that my husband Ty and I took on the road when the documentary first came out. We took it to 22 cities for live screenings. And after everybody watched this transformational documentary, I would get on the stage and Ty would join me at first and share the backstory, the things that didn't make it into the documentary. That's what you're going to see in this video, because we had one of those talks at a live screening, professionally filmed, so that those who couldn't be there in person could enjoy those details that don't come through in the film. So I know you'll enjoy this. And at the end, I'll show you how you can watch the film if you haven't yet had the pleasure of seeing it. Enjoy. So many people I want to thank, but I know that Ty doesn't like standing up here too long, so I'll let him talk. This is for you. He tells people I'm just a simple ship driver, you know, and which is far from the truth, but none of this would be possible if he hadn't supported me from the start. As you saw, he didn't even know what a medium was, and now he's married to one. So.
First of all, I'd like to thank everyone for coming today, and I'd like to particularly recognize Helping Parents Heal, Shining Light Parents. If you could just sort of raise your hands so we know. This is a club that no one ever expected to be part of, but when it happens to you, it's the worst day of your life. But there's so many the silver linings of the cloud that come out over the years. Suzanne's work, of course, helping so many people, and going to the Helping Parents Heal conferences and talking to other parents who have gone through this and see that there is life after this and that our children are still around us. I remember at the first conference, the Saturday night banquet, 1,200 people in the room. It was getting a little raucous. And I'd gone off to use the washroom, came back, and I'm standing at the door about to walk in, and this lady was standing there, and she's marveling at what a happy group we had. And she asked, well, this is tremendous. What group is this? And you can see this coming, right? Yeah. And I said, well, this is Helping Parents Heal. We've all lost children. And she was thunderstruck. And but those of you who are part of Helping Parents Heal know how much it has helped you along the way, and it certainly helped me. Getting to the bus tour, Suzanne asked if I had any second thoughts, and I went like this. It has been great. The two instances when the engine broke down in Albany, New York, and we blew a tire in Fort Wayne, Indiana, I was wondering about my common sense.
But the repair facility was on Wolf Road. Yeah. And we were on the road in just a few hours, so there've been signs along the way.
And my last comment on the making of the movie, you saw the bedroom scene, and of course for you gentlemen, if you've never been in bed with your wife with 4 video cameras stationed, it's a little odd. Thank you.
So I mentioned to you that a psychic said there's going to be a film. And I had wanted this to be a film over the years. Wolf passed 14 years ago before it was made. I met Mike and Beth 12 years ago, and then the book was published 10 years ago. It took 2 years for all of this to unfold, to decipher the message, to connect the dots. And so in the 10 years since, 2 Hollywood-type producers came up to me and said, I want to do a film on this book. And we got really excited until in both cases, they wanted me to sign away all rights to having any say in how it would be done. And they wanted to do a movie, which, as we all know, has to have drama, which means you have to have a good guy and a bad guy. And I just didn't want to see what they would do to Wolf, how they would possibly twist that around, or mediumship. We might have to turn it into a scary ghost story, when this is sensational enough. Yeah. And it's very important for me to always be accurate and truthful when it comes to mediumship and anything. So I said no, and I know the second time Mike and Beth were like, but this guy was good. And I said, it's just not right. And when I get to the end of this whole discussion, you'll see why the time wasn't right, and now was the time. So I just set that aside. Well, let me backtrack to November before the film was made, 2 years ago now. 2 years ago. This is how I met the director, Jim Spruill, who, by the way, sang that song. Did you notice that? And wrote it. He downloaded that just from Spirit. I was sitting at home, and my assistant Lynette, who you saw on the screen, and my assistant Bev, who helped with all of your tickets here, said, they both reached out at the same time, Suzanne, we just got an email, you need to see it. And I said, well, send it along to me. And they sent it, and I got it. And I love when we do these events, and Jim, the director, is up here, because I love to see him squirm. But I'm gonna read you his exact email that I got. He says, my wife and I lost our beloved son, Dakota, on November 23rd, 2021. And we were anxiously looking forward to reading your book, Still Right Here. And we ordered it from Amazon. Now, little sidebar here. Jim's wife, Gloria, was looking for anything that could help her understand where Dakota might be, to understand the afterlife. And so she was on Amazon, and she noticed that little 1 in the cart, but she hadn't ordered anything. So she clicked on the cart, and there's this book called Still Right Here by this author named Suzanne Giesemann, who she'd never heard of. So she said, well, I wonder what this is about. And she starts looking at it, and she says, Jim, this book is perfect. It's about 4 couples who have children across the veil like us, and it's about the afterlife, and Suzanne says she can talk to them. Let's get it. So they ordered it. So he says, it arrived today, and what a terrible disappointment it was. It is printed upside down and backwards, and from back to front, and not in chronological order. I mean, really, what the hell is going on? Now, I've seen this book, and it wasn't just like the publisher put the cover on backwards. It was totally discombobulated. Either your publisher, your printer, your production manager, your book company, or all of the above are to blame for this. Did no one look at the press proofs? And there's a typo in that line. We are happy to send pictures and are more than happy to send you this completely messed up book. Please let us know what is going on and how we can get a real copy of your book. This is a terrible and almost cruel moment for a couple who were so excited to read your book. Good Lord. Please respond quickly. Jim and Gloria Spruill. So I love reading that because, you read that and you think, gosh, that guy. But once you get to know that guy, he was just trying to help his wife who was upset. When I read that, I knew that was a spirit thing. I know this world is more malleable than it seems. When you have a book move twice, and I've had other NOEs, no other explanation, physical moments that I know are moments when spirit allows the veil to part just enough that you have to question it. To have only one of thousands of copies of that book be completely screwed up. I sat with that for a minute. And then I went into the heart and I started writing a reply. And I did not start with, I'm so sorry. There was no apology. I started with, Dear Jim, did your son have a funny way of looking at the world? Did he like a good joke? Was he a bit of a prankster? And I said, I believe this is a setup from your son, and I know I'm supposed to gift you a reading. Let's set that up. And we'll get you a copy of that book. And it turns out Lynette lived 10 miles from them and had a copy of the book. I don't know why she had it, an extra one, and so she dropped it off in person, but they want the other one now. They held on to that one. It's an heirloom now. So I sit to do the reading with them, and I could feel Dakota's presence before I even started. I could feel the energy building, and he showed me an image of a horse waiting at the gate for a race. And I knew, because Spirit always uses metaphors, they had horses before we even started. So I get Jim and Gloria on my computer screen, and I said, Dakota's here, let's get going. I said, okay, Dakota, let's dance. That's how I like to start a reading, because it's just a dance of our souls together. And I said, let's dance, and that horse shot out of the gate, so there's the horse again. But then Dakota morphed into this little boy rolling around in the hay, and I said, look, he's here, and I know you guys had horses, at least when he was growing up. Well, I've since been to their horse farm. I've petted those horses, so that was just right out of the gate. We got evidence. But then I brought his personality to life because we merged so beautifully. I could feel him, and it was just a beautiful session. At wolfsmessage.com, there's an interview with Jim and me, and you can hear more about that. But my favorite part of that reading was when Dakota said, Dad, we're still a family of 4. And it turns out that they have a daughter, Savannah, and Jim had been wondering, how do I answer people when they say, how many in your family? And he had been working on that question as lyrics to a song, and Dakota answered it. And he decided, I'm not going to write that song. Jim's favorite moment is when Dakota said, Premiere, Dad, my name's up in lights. And Jim had no idea what he was talking about. Neither did I, but I trust Spirit, and we figured we'd figure it out. Did you notice Dakota's name up on the screen at the end there? Yeah, he got his name up in lights at the premiere, which was in South Carolina, where we live now, on the big screen in a Cinemark theater. So I've loved that when I talk to spirits, that if we can't figure out something that comes through in the moment, you just trust them. It'll make itself known later. So that was just a super reading that I wanted to share as part of my keynote address for the Helping Parents Heal conference a year ago. And Jim and Gloria agreed to allow me to share parts of that reading. And so I'm putting together my slides, going back and forth in emails with Jim Spruill. Send me a picture of those funky shoes he talked about. Send me a picture of the fuzzy dice he showed us, all the evidence, and then we'll share the messages to show everybody how real this is. And I'd seen maybe by that time 10 emails from Jim Spruill. But this was shortly after Annette the psychic said there's going to be a film. And I got snagged. And if you've taken any of my courses or workshops, you know what a snag is. It's when you see something over and over, but suddenly it catches your attention in a way you can't ignore. And I was snagged by that little logo you see in the middle right there. It looks like a Z. I pulled the thread by looking at it and seeing what it was, and it said, Zuza Films. And I swear I could hear the angels sing. I knew in that moment, oh my God, Jim is a filmmaker. His son Dakota, this wasn't just about doing a reading for Mom and Dad. He's the one. He's going to do this film. And I went online to Zuza Films, and he hadn't done any full-length features. He did high-end commercials. I didn't care. He was the guy. I knew it because I could feel his heart when I did the reading. By the way, I found out at a recent screening we did, there was a Hungarian man there, and he came up and he said, do you know that in Hungarian, Zuza is a nickname for Suzanne? Pretty cool. Very cool. So I said, Jim, have you read my book, Wolf's Message? And he said, no. And I said, well, I had a psychic tell me that somebody's going to make a movie in the next year, and it's got to be Wolf's Message. So I'd love for you to read Wolf's Message. Watch the documentary Messages of Hope, which tells my story, and go on YouTube and watch a presentation called Heart Gifts. it tells the whole Wolf's Message story. I was going around the country giving that presentation before this even became a book. And tell me what you think. Because I knew he was the guy, but I didn't realize, I never came out and said, you're the guy. Do you want to do this? So he did all that. He took 3 weeks, he read the book, he watched the 2 videos, and then he struggled because he tells it really well. He gets up here and he says, she didn't ask me, and I wasn't really sure if she wanted me to do it, and I didn't want to be the guy that says, yeah, I'll do your film, and you were going to say, I didn't mean you. He says, like when somebody waves at you on the street and you wave back and they're really waving at the person behind you. So he did it this way. He got me on the phone. He said, well, I looked at everything that you said, and here's how I see the movie opening. And I knew he was on board, and he was. And I said, great, give me a budget. Let me get some funding for this, and let's do it. And it was absolutely divinely inspired. You can see that film crew did a beautiful job. They're not videographers, they're cinematographers. He had this crew of 9 that flew to 9 different places around the country. They had the special lighting guy, the special sound guy, and it was a beautiful experience, and definitely fun at the bedroom scene. And really fun to have people reenact scenes, just a few with us. I'm going to get to my gratitude for Mike and Beth. That's very special, so I just want to share a few things before we get to them. But Velvet, the rock store owner, I hadn't talked to her in 10 years since I needed her permission to use her name in the book, Wolf's Message. I wondered if she was still in Montana. I wondered if her email was still good, because for goodness sakes, it was AOL.com. And she answered, and I said, look, we're turning this into a documentary. How'd you like to come over to Idaho, where we were for the summer and the filming, and just reenact that time when we saw each other? Because, I mean, I never forgot that. I hadn't been in that store in 2 years. I walk in and she remembered me, but you remember what she said. You know, she walked in and you could tell her back was straight. Well, Velvet was a real riot. She sat in the chair there doing that interview, and Jim, the director, was interviewing her, and he said, well, Velvet, what did you think the first time you saw Suzanne walk back in your store? And she didn't exactly say what you saw there. She said, well, I took one look at her and you could tell she had her shit together. That got cut. But the neat thing about Velvet is she showed up with a box of fulgurites. You remember the fulgurite necklace? That's the sand that's struck by lightning and forms a tube. And allegedly, according to Native American lore, if you pray while you hold that, it gives power to your prayers. I love that. And so I have several fulgurites, but with that box, everybody in the crew got one. And then I have this box of fulgurites, and I said, I know what I'm going to do with these. So it's been really lovely on this tour to get to play Santa Claus. I want to recognize a now good friend of mine, and many of you have heard of her, and she sent out an email that let many of you know about this. I have one fulgurite that I'll give at the end of the show to Marcy Shimoff. Yay, and many of you... We had dinner with her and her husband Sergio. It was really great to get to know them better. She is a multiple New York Times best-selling expert on happiness and unconditional love. Check her books out. She's awesome. But the fulgurite for you. And I'm going to let the 2 affiliate leaders of Helping Parents Heal fight over this. Maybe you can have it at your meeting and you use it like the talking stick, right? So Lisa, thank you for that. Who else did I have? I spent the morning, I was gifted a photo shoot this morning with a very talented photographer, Lisa Keating. And so Lisa's here, and I have one for you, Lisa, wherever you are. Yep, and one for Ross, our videographer back there. Yay. So there we go. So Mike and Beth, you saw them there. They, over the years, have become 2 of our dearest friends. Just such genuine people. Beth is a veterinarian. She was a scientist. When I first saw them in that audience at the conference where we found out both of our children had passed by lightning strike,
She sat there like this. She was brand new to this journey. This is all nonsense, this talk of the afterlife. You got to convince me it's real. And she is so on board now because the evidence does that. And she's had her own experiences printing out tax forms in her office at home and thinking about Wolf. And out of the printer spits out a picture of him that nobody had looked at on the computer recently. When she first became ill with this leukemia, her mother dropped in on me. I knew it was her mother. I had done a reading for Beth and I recognized her mom. And her mom said, "Go Tiger." So I texted Beth right away. "Your mom just dropped in on me. She says, go Tiger." I thought that was just a nice thing to say. Beth texted back a photo she has of something that her mom gave her when Beth participated in the Pan, Massachusetts bike race. She's very fit, Beth is, and probably why she has withstood 2 bone marrow transplants now. And she rode all the way across Massachusetts, and her mother gave her this painted rock that says, "Go Tiger." Ooh, some of you must have gotten truth shivers because I just picked them up here. Yeah. But that filming in Darien, Georgia, for them to allow the crew to come in and to film Beth looking sick, it hurts us every time we see her like that because we've known her as this robust woman. She helped both of our dogs cross the Rainbow Bridge. That's this bond that you just never lose. When the crew showed up in Darien, they went there first to make sure Beth was well enough to do this. That lightning, the several lightning strikes at the very beginning of the film, it was weather like this today, blue sky. They get their cameras out on the dock, the gray clouds roll in, they captured that actual lightning. And then it went away and they got on with the filming. Phenomenal. But Mike and Beth were living in Cape Cod when all of this took place originally. And then they decided it's time to retire and move south. They were going to come to live near where we lived in Florida at the time. And I'm glad they didn't because we left and moved. They call us halfbacks. You move halfway back to South Carolina. And they found a house in Darien, Georgia that you saw there. And they just felt this is the place for us. And they put an offer in, it was accepted. And the owner said, "Well, I have this boat, I can't use it. You want the boat with the house?" They said, "Yeah," and they get the manual for the boat, and it's the model, the Lightning. And that last scene you see, the very last scene where they're looking out at the marsh, and they're pointing at this island, they got out a nautical chart. It's Wolf Island. So maybe that's coincidence, I know it's not. But it's not a coincidence is if you go back and watch this film, you'll see what I see every time it shows. A painting Wolf did years before they ever even thought of moving south and never thought they'd live in Georgia. And it's a painting of their property now on the water. And I recognize this log that he painted because I've been there and I've seen this very distinct log. Palm trees, marsh grass. Why is a kid in New England painting this? Dolphins on a creek and a little brindle-colored dog under the tree. They have that dog now. They didn't have it then. The soul knows. So there are 3 themes in this film that Jim Spruill so beautifully brought out. The first one, of course, is Wolf's main message, which I got to say at the beginning and at the end and throughout. All of this evidence shows us we're not only human. We're souls now. Always have been. Always will be. And we're all connected by this web. And I hope that I've shown you how fun it is to connect the dots and not let that left hemisphere of your brain say, "Oh, that's a coincidence. Oh, I'm making this up." Let yourself be snagged. Pull the thread. Why did that catch my attention? And then love is the basis of everything. So that was theme 1 that came through. But the second theme that's so important was that piece about mental illness. At the very least, may this film help people to see the soul in everyone that we don't call normal on any level. And the third one points to why I said I know this film was meant to be made now. If it had been made 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago, we would not have gotten through that very important message at the end that Beth put out so eloquently, that she was suddenly sick. It came out of nowhere. We were together on my cruise that I led to Alaska. She was perfectly healthy. Spent great time together. 1 week later, she gets cold-like symptoms, had a blood test, and they said, get to the ER right away. You are really sick. And it's been nothing but medical things since then. But she comes on the camera, not worried about how she looks, to make the message. It is all about love. The afterlife is real, and when you fully embrace that truth, it takes away the fear of death. Being a medium took away that fear from me of my own death, but what lingered for me was I couldn't stand the fact that if I passed before Ty, that he would suffer like I saw him suffer when Susan passed. I was afraid of dying before him because I couldn't stand him suffering. Until in meditation I saw this life is going to be hard no matter what. And it's going to have beautiful times no matter what. That's life. And we can't stop that. And we don't want to. Because how many of us have not grown stronger from our challenges? And so the spiritual path, or the awakened way as I call it, doesn't guarantee you happiness. Sorry, Marcy. Her one book is called Happy for No Reason. That's when you don't rely on something outside of yourself for happiness. It's an underlying essence that even in the darkest of your grief, you know there's something more. You know there's purpose somehow in this, even though at the human level you never would have signed up for whatever it is you're going through. And that may not be happiness in the moment, but that's the soul's way of saying, this too shall pass. The soul is already whole and complete. I just feel so blessed to get to share these messages that I had no clue about. I'm not a born medium. I never saw spirits, but now I can guarantee you this life is not the end. And that because you are a soul now, you can bypass the brain's filters and sense your loved ones. Maybe you're not meant to be a medium, but we all have this capability to at least sense and acknowledge the signs and the whispers and sometimes the shouts that say to me, get up out of bed now, because we have some teaching to do. Poor Ty. Scribble, 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 scribble. But, you know, it might be a leap to say this film couldn't be made until Beth got sick. It might be a leap to say it was part of her soul's plan to get this very aggressive form of leukemia and then share that message that we can pass without fear, face our own death without fear. I don't think it's a leap at all because of something that came to light last January. You remember the book that moved? And I was led by Wolf. Look at the pictures in the middle, and there's Pajama Jama Mama, right? There's Pachamama. And at the moment, I didn't know why I was led to that book, and then it all played out. Well, there was something else in that book I was led to, and I didn't know why at the time. It was another picture in there, and it was a mythological figure. It was made of stone. It's a photograph of a stone figure. And I looked at it because I was curious, and it's called a chimera, Chimera. And it was mythologically when scientists would cross the DNA of an animal with a human. So this picture is a stone figure that you see the profile of. And it's full length. It has a long beak. It has a long robe with a sash and wings. As I looked at that, learning about Chimera, Wolf is still right here, because he's the one that said, look at that picture in the middle, there's Pachamama. And he says, clear as day, have my dad send you my pictures of that. It was so clear that when I emailed Mike, Because just like I went back and forth with Jim, I was going back and forth with Mike, and validating things from the drop-in, validating things from their reading. I emailed Mike and I said, Wolf is here, and he wants you to send me his drawings of a winged creature. I didn't say, did he do that? I knew he did. And back comes an email of a line drawing in black and white of a full-length being with a full-length robe, a long beak, a sash, and wings. You put them side by side in that Heart Gifts presentation, you can see it. He drew that. So that was another bingo from Wolf's drop-ins before. But why would he bring up this chimera? Fast forward 12 years. Last January, Beth texts me, Suzanne, we just got some more test results back. The DNA from the donor crossed with mine has been accepted by my body. The chimerism test proves it. There we go again with the truth shivers. Blood test named after chimera, crossing DNA from one being to another. I know that's not a stretch. I see how this works. We're in this for the long game, because there's no end to this story. So that film was meant to be made. I will take some questions here in a minute, but you know, when you watch a film like this and it really causes you to question your worldview and your belief system, what do you do with that? You might just set it aside and say, that was interesting, but I'm not ready to change. Or you could say, I want to start living the awakened way in accordance with those 3 principles. Boy, that's what your soul came here to do. So in my book, The Awakened Way, I talk about the 3 E's of living this way. And it's very simple. Educate yourself more about this. I have now 600 videos on my YouTube channel and adding more every week. Watch people's near-death experience accounts. Read about them. Read about the afterlife. Get my Awakened Way app that's free. We just added there today the what do we call it? On the menu, your questions answered. You have a question that doesn't get answered today, you can go right there on the app, absolutely free, and ask a question, and it's my virtual librarian. She will dive into my entire repository of all my videos, all my books, all my classes, and give you an answer as if it came from me and my guide, Sanaya. How cool is that? Yeah. It's not just on the app, it's also on my website, because this is my mission, if you can't tell, to let people know these truths and to bring more love into our world so we start seeing the soul in each other. So educate yourself. That's the first thing. The second E is experience for yourself by sitting in the stillness or getting out in nature or doing body work that shows you you're more than this body, that shows you you're not only human. I have lots of practices for how to do that in my teaching. And then the third E, engage higher consciousness yourself. I know there's not a parent in Helping Parents Heal that doesn't talk to their child now. Am I right? Yeah, because you know they're still here. And some may not hear back from them yet. You might have heard there, it took me 3 years of not missing a day. Every day, Susan, reveal yourself to me. But you also notice that I opened up to the spirit world. I'm acting as a medium and I still haven't heard from Susan. She came through a few years back and said, Suzanne, I wasn't supposed to come through right away. You would have stopped. You would have said, mission accomplished, there's Susan. But you weren't supposed to stop because you had to have so many more experiences and really understand expanded states of consciousness and that angels are real and guides are real and be able to teach this to other people. So if you haven't heard from your loved one, it's not necessarily you're doing something wrong, and it's certainly not that there's anything wrong with you. It's the soul that makes this connection, and the soul is right here. But sometimes our human stuff gets in the way. So this is a process of bringing our human story into alignment, into attunement with the soul. And we all know what the soul's aspects are like, right? Compassionate, kind, loving, open. And it starts with belief. And I hope this film has helped you believe there's something more. If you can't get there yet, be as a little child, right? And just say, what if? And just have a sense of wonder. Okay, I'll play a little bit. You don't have to tell anybody. That's a big fear people have. What will people think, right? What will they think of me? Make it your little secret until you have to share it with the world, okay? So let me answer some questions, and because we're being recorded and we don't have enough mics to run around, I'll repeat your question out loud so everybody can hear you. Yes. She's talking about Wolf when he was talking about not being understood and he couldn't turn off the voices. It reminded her of the telepathy tapes. If you haven't heard of those yet, it's a wonderful podcast in which Kai Dickens, the host, is learning that those with autism are communicating with each other telepathically. There is no doubt. And I listen to that and I say, well, yeah. You know, it's just so obvious, and I understand how it works, and I'm so grateful that this is yet another avenue which will help people who have a hard time thinking about mediumship and talking to those who have passed to realize that it's the same process. Was there a further question? Yes, so could it be that those with autism are here to be our teachers as well, and that there's more to share? Without any doubt. And so we can say, why do some people have mental illness? Could it really be a soul's plan that a soul entered a body that they knew would have autism, or that somebody would get dementia? It could very well be. Because look at the opportunities that gives those around them to practice the soul's qualities of compassion and patience and kindness. Yeah, gives us a lot to think about. Thank you for that one. Does Wolf still drop in today, and does he provide any messages? I don't communicate with him back and forth too much, but I sense him now all the time with Susan while we're on tour. Susan, Wolf, and Dakota, very clearly right over here. His dad, Mike, as predicted in the initial reading with Mike and Beth, has opened up a phenomenal connection with Wolf over the years because he never gave up. And he now gets up every morning at 3 in the morning and writes and writes and writes what Wolf has to say. But the really cool thing is that people who read Wolf's message start to feel him. Many people feel Wolf's presence, and they certainly start seeing Wolf signs everywhere. I get so many emails of people sending me license plates and trucks with Wolf on it, and the wolves. The wolves. So yes. Anything over here? The Radio Flyer movie was filmed here in Novato? Wow, wow. I go a lot more into that in the book. That's pretty clear. That's cool. There is a lot in the book that didn't fit into the film. Clearly, it's on Audible, and it's 6 or 8 hours worth of reading, and we had to make it into a 1-hour documentary. But I know that Jim did a really beautiful job, that he was the man for the job, and I love that we can honor Dakota that way. I will tell you that we had, as I wrap this up here, one of the most beautiful moments on this tour was when we did a screening in Plymouth where Wolf passed. And we set up a screening at the tree. Not a screening, a service, a ceremony to honor him, a remembrance service. And I thought, oh boy, this is a public place. In the Navy, we have a saying, it's easier to ask forgiveness than permission. But I didn't want to have more than 100 people show up and then have police come out and make it into something not positive. So I said, we're going to go by the book. I will call City Hall. I will get permission. But oh, don't we all know, bureaucracy can sometimes be a challenge. But Spirit told me years ago, when your heart's in the right place, things fall into place. And so I called City Hall, told her what we were trying to do. She says, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so over at the cemetery, the people in charge of that. Let me connect you. The woman answered immediately. I told her what we're trying to do. Oh, I heard about that book. Yeah, I know that story. Sure. You probably don't even need a permit. Just show up. And I said, could we get a permit, please? And she says, yeah, I'll send it to you by email right away. It was just within 12 hours of even having the idea, we had a signed permit. Does that happen? When Spirit's pulling the strings, it does. So it was a beautiful thing to have that remembrance, and we remembered everybody's loved ones. And a film of that is on wolfsmessage.com, the homepage. And afterwards, a woman came up to me. She waited near the end, kind of like Mike did the first time we met. And she said, I have to tell you, I was Wolf's assigned social worker for 6 years. We had to meet regularly. And I feel so guilty and so bad because I never really saw him while he was here. And I knew what she meant. She saw him as a client, somebody with mental illness and a label. And she said, and when your book came out, I saw it, I started reading it, and I said, this is ridiculous, and I set it aside. And then I took one of those ghost tours around Plymouth, and they bring people to the tree now, and they're talking about Wolf. And I knew Wolf, and I said, this is crazy. And she left the tour. And she said, and then, Suzanne, I had an experience that blew me wide open. I could not deny there's more. And now I feel so bad because I get it. And I looked at her and I said, don't waste another second feeling bad. He knows. He always knew at the soul level. And he's thrilled now that you get it. So just forgive yourself. That's my prayer whenever I do anything that is just out of alignment with the soul. Forgive me for ever thinking I was anything less than love. Because we do forget. We get caught up in being only human. And so she walked away from that feeling better, and I know that Wolf feels better about that. But Ty and I got back on the road, and we went into a gas station, and I went inside the store, and I came back and I said, oh, Ty, the woman behind the counter, this is one of those opportunities where you're going to go inside. You really need to see her soul. You'll see what I mean. Because it would have been one of those things where you just, you put up the deflector shields, as we say, because they act different. And I love that that has helped us to see the soul in everybody. I do an exercise when I do retreats where we have lots of room, and we line up 2 rows, multiple rows, but 2 rows, people facing each other, just 3 feet apart, not 6 feet apart, 3 feet apart. And everybody is asked to put their hands on their hearts. And you move to your left one by one, and as you cross each person, you look each other in the eye, and you hold that gaze a little longer than might be comfortable in normal situations. And you say to each other, I see you. I see Ty's face scrunching up in the back, even talking about it now, because it is such an emotional experience. He's photographed that, and everybody is sobbing. Because for the first time, maybe for many people, you feel seen and you see the depth of somebody else that we really only allow certain family members to see. But what a blessing to start to see other people that way. And so I hope that's another thing you take home. And just know that sometimes just seeing someone is enough to keep them here. You never know. Yeah. So look at how you all have now become messengers of hope. I love that. I love that you're part of this community. You can't help it. Your soul brought you here. You thought you came with somebody else or something, but it's a setup. But thank you so much for joining us. And I'll be back there signing books outside till the last one's signed. And go see Ross if you're so inclined. Please say hi to Ty. Couldn't do it without him. And just know that we love you all so much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. If you haven't yet seen Wolf's Message, I'm so pleased to let you know that it is now streaming free on the streaming platform Tubi. That's Tubi. That's available in the US and UK and Australia and a couple other countries. You can also catch it if you have a subscription to Gaia TV. But just go to Tubi. I apologize that they put commercials in the middle of it. I say use that time to go and just see if you can tune into Wolf. But in any case, I know you'll enjoy the film. A lot of people watch it several times, and I challenge anybody to watch it without saying, wow. I hope that you sense beautiful synchronicities with wolves after you watch it. So many people do, and I hope that it encourages you to expand your consciousness and start questioning reality. There's so much more to this world than we meet with our senses. Thanks for watching.